Okay, we are live. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Turning Point. If you haven't caught our first episode yet, I highly encourage you to check it out. Feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and we've managed to cover a lot of information that is extremely valuable without all the unnecessary noise. So, as always, I'm honored to be here with my dear brother, Vandell, my two good friends, Edo Farina and David Bronscombe. How's everyone today? Good?
Yep, we're doing good.
Doing
Excellent.
great, yeah.
Doing
Edo?
great.
All right,
All
good.
good.
So we have a lot to talk about. We're going to dive right into it. Okay, so we're going to start with the Trump verdict, and we're going to touch very lightly on the subject just so we can move on to some of the bigger topics. But the Trump narrative, undeniably, it's captivating, very complex. And without diving into too much detail on all the speculations and uncertainties coming from the Riddlers and whatnot, every day it becomes, a little bit more clear that this entire political saga and all the chaos that we see in the world is being orchestrated as a strategic move, possibly even to get Trump back into office. At this point, I just see this as a marketing strategy to boost the election campaign. And at the same time, it also does expose what we see with the deep state, the corruption within our political system. And of course, this sheds light on the Biden administration, which is really a group of psychopath puppets who are working on behalf of the global elite out of Eastern Europe. Now, from a macro perspective, this all underscores just how the political system is deliberately being broken down and dismantled for the whole world to witness. And I think this is, no doubt, it's a calculated step in order to usher us into the new phase of governance, alongside a phase in a new monetary system and other profound changes, basically where this is all going.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I am going to point out that while this was all going on, the Trump verdict, and everyone was paying attention to this, it's like another situation of look here, don't look over there. Because while the whole world was fixated on the Trump stuff, no one was reporting what happened in the central bank level. The money velocity was moving upwards, more fake liquidity being pumped into the system. Central banks were buying up all the debt. And we saw mergers and acquisitions that took place right under everyone's noses. So it's very interesting how that was all going on, and other things we're going to talk about here today while this whole Trump verdict thing was here. So this is, again, consolidation of the financial system and all other industries, including energy, to achieve the ultimate goal of absolute control. In my opinion, the pigs are getting bigger, and the masses, of course, are falling deeper into poverty and have to deal with all the inflation. But some of our friends out there, they keep saying, don't worry, everything's getting better. So we're not going to get into that. But guys, I want to start with my brother, Vandell. I want to know what your thoughts are on the whole Trump verdict. And we'll move on to Edo and then David.
So I'm really interested to hear Edo and David's take on that. But if you had to ask me from just somebody watching outside everything going on and paying attention to everything else taking place around the same time frame, I'd say it's one of the biggest distractions taking place at the moment. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's certainly a distraction. That's why it's getting so much spotlight and media attention on a global scale. Because interestingly, the timing when they decided to really let this play out and really showcase it on a global scale for the masses, and I mean, just give it so much attention every single day on mainstream media. While that's happening, there's a tremendous amount of other issues taking place in the world right now. And there's a long list. I'm not going to go through all of them, but regional bank failures, record credit card debt at all-time highs, CRE loans defaulting. On top of that, troops in Ukraine. The list goes on. The Petrodollar, which the agreement ends around June 9th, which is just around the corner. And yeah, in my opinion, the reason they're highlighting it so much and putting so much mainstream attention on it is to really keep your eyes on that while other things are taking place. And that's a perfect thing to do, because it's just drawing in so much attention from even intelligent people. That's the topic of the day every day, it seems. But yeah, David, what do you think? We talked about this on the messenger, and I know Ito was in the chat as well. But you said the other day you sent something regarding this, and it was your opinion. I want to hear it.
I guess we'll move on to David and then we'll go to Edo.
Yeah, because
No
I thought
problem.
we were going to go to Edo
No,
first.
it's okay.
Well,
Yeah.
if I can go. So I've looked at this whole case from the very beginning, and I think because Trump as a character, as an individual, is so he himself is not necessarily the divisive thing. It's just anything surrounding him, they know it is so divisive. And to me, like, this whole case has been a propped up pony show, dog and pony show, basically from day one. And when you think about it from this perspective, I mean, over the weekend, get this, Trump's been able to raise what, $200 million since Thursday, in small donations. I mean, you're talking 30, 40, $50 donations, and they've raised over $200 million. I mean, you have to imagine how many people, like you had just said that there, Vandell, are fixated on this whole issue. And they know it's an emotional hot button. And when you think about that, they've practically just given him the White House in one respect when you consider that. But it would not surprise me come July 11th that they say, oh yeah, we're going to put him in jail. He'll probably spend 5 days in jail, and then they'll appeal the whole thing. He'll get out during the appeal process. But I think all of these are hot buttons they are just causing the majority of people to be absolutely fixated on. It gives them the fifth estate, the media that we get, it gives them like material galore to just kind of pump out there. I think, Verson, you nailed it on the head in the capacity that all these things that are going on the sidelines behind that nobody even understands the total impact of, because these mergers and acquisitions, and I can go over a few, but we'll wait till we get there. They are going to revolutionize, change the way in which the financial structure of the world is working. And of course, they're keeping most folks completely distracted from that 100%. I know that I put this supposition out there in our, when we were having our own private chat, that it would not even surprise me to find out later on down the road that the Trump campaign was almost, that they were working together with it, because you couldn't ask for a more perfect scenario. If you ask me,
The timing.
you could not even ask for a more perfect scenario. I mean, literally, you're watching a situation where this judge, the judge is not the guy is not stupid, and he knows the law, yet intentionally has done things that he knows will not survive appeal. It's not going to survive appeal. Anybody knows this conviction is going to get overturned just on legal grounds alone, because error in law, and on and on and on. I mean, instructing the jury to come back and telling them they don't even have to be unanimous, and on and on and on. I mean, it's just crazy. And so you have to wonder, like, it just seems too perfect. I guess that's my take on it.
Yeah, they're all shaking hands behind the curtains.
Yeah.
It's all a show.
Edo, I'd like to get your take on this.
Yeah, what do you
I know
think,
you and
Edo?
I have talked about this thoroughly.
It feels like a big Hollywood show. That's what about politicians mostly in America are about. And Versen is gonna remember that we had interviewed Dr. Shiva, and there has been a lot of facts in that interview. In fact, I was a bit concerned that our channels would be censored, because Dr. Shiva really has no filter. He's actually running as an independent for the US presidential campaign. Now, I love what both of you said before, and I totally agree with that whenever there is too much highlights on some certain topic, and that's exactly the case for what's going on with Trump right now, you can be sure that that's a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that when 99% of people are paying attention to some specific topic, I usually have a tendency to look the other way around, because there's a lot of events going on behind the scenes, and the average Joe is actually paying attention to Trump's verdict, but they are actually closing their eyes for all of the items that Vandell listed before. Not to talk about inflation going up, and I could add some more to the equation, but most people are paying attention to the wrong things. And I think that is pretty much, and I don't say only in America, and let's be honest, most of them are colluded, and we saw perfectly the example in 2019 and 2020, if anyone had doubts. But there is a spectrum. So everything that is inside this spectrum, and that goes for right wings and left wings, that's allowed by mainstream. But whenever you cross the line, that's when things start to get sketchy, and that's when there's censorship, and that's when there's truth on the situation, it's not allowed to talk publicly. So we have to be very careful on that. And for me, it's an indicator that if everybody's discussing the same topic, everybody's paying exclusive attention to what's going on, that for me is already a major red flag, and we have to be looking on the other direction. What are your takes on that, Versan?
Well, very good point. And, just like you said over there, and what you guys all have talked about, is that I personally believe there's a silent bank run already underway, because you're starting to see smaller financial institutions, face collapse. Larger institutions are consolidating control of everything. And again, this situation, like we talked last time, it's a classic problem reaction solution scenario. So I think all the politics is completely a distraction. I really believe that, because we know how this game runs. Yeah, who runs the politicians? It's the central banks, right? So this goes back then to, again, the consolidation of the financial system. And again, we've seen the weaponization. And like my brother said, credit card debt is skyrocketing. Most Americans are having to live paycheck to paycheck. So, I mean, look, what the hell are we talking about, right? We're talking about politics. And this is why I normally would not do it or discuss politics. It's just, we had to touch on it very lightly. So I want to move now into mergers and acquisitions. There were some big things happening nobody was paying attention to. Money velocity was going up. That means they're putting fake money into the system. We talk about this all the time. It's all about the debt market. Risk was so damn high in the market. And then they ended up purchasing up all the debt, the central banks collectively. Risk comes down, consolidations happen, right? Inflation goes up. So what do you guys think? Vandell, let's go with you first.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say that, a lot of people don't know this, but even a convicted felon, so let's say Trump gets convicted, whatever, all part of the show. In the U.S. Constitution, it does not explicitly prohibit a convict from becoming a president. So just so you know, it's not in the Constitution. So by law, he could be behind bars, becoming the president. So that's one thing I wanted to throw out. The second thing is, as Ido was saying, and you guys also agree, I know this, but all the attention is on Trump. They want us to focus on this topic. Again, while there's so much going on the sidelines that affect our lives directly. Now, the interesting thing here is, as David sometimes says, and we talk about this, that there's this almost like a religious movement behind the support of certain individuals. And in the case, if let's say Trump wins this election, okay, he comes back, he saves the day, fixes a few things. Well, just so everybody knows, your lives aren't going to change overnight. Your inflation is still going to be high. Your cost of living is still going to be high. Maybe it would be controlled to some extent, but it's not like if he takes office, okay, prices are going to drop back down to pre-pandemic prices. You know what I'm saying? So that's not going to happen like that, just so people know. Now, in regards to, what was your question? Inflation?
Mergers, acquisitions. So a lot of institutions are being purchased. The smaller banks, a weaponization of the industries. So everything's being bought up. It's all being consolidated. And again, this is the ultimate game for control. And you know this. But.
Yeah. So what's happening here is major financial institutions like Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, and certain central banks and other major financial institutions, but primarily those, what they're doing is they're acquiring various assets throughout the globe. That includes real estate, that includes precious metals, a variety of businesses. And here's one thing that a lot of people don't think about, but when we talk about the price of assets going up, there's two things driving them, even in the real estate market. It's not just creating money out of thin air, printing money, issuing debt. Yes, that's one thing that drives up asset prices because your currency is devaluing. But the second thing that drives it up artificially even faster is what you were saying. It's when the asset acquisition, these companies like BlackRock comes in, they're buying all the single family homes. Well, that creates an artificial demand driving up price. So,
Good point. Very
yeah,
good point.
but this applies to assets on a large scale. It's not just one specific sector or asset class. It's all assets.
Yeah.
But
Dave.
that is happening as we speak. And the bank consolidation, this is the long-term goal. They cannot introduce their central bank digital currencies and roll out their plans overnight, okay? It's a gradual process. They know that human beings, from a psychological standpoint, are adaptable, and that's a slow process. So in order for them to succeed with this, they have to shift the power to a handful of banks, and now they have more control than they do now. But that's the key right here. Yeah.
Spot on, Vandell. Thank you very much. David, your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Vandell on that. It is definitely this is just another chess move on the board because it's a consolidation of power. I mean, we've seen some major acquisitions just in this short little while. You saw, what was it? The bank, was it Bank of America or come in and they gobbled up some of these other smaller players and this type of thing. You had Capital One that came in. They took over all the debt of Discover Card and stuff like that. You saw some really big plays. Now, why is that? Well, because of course they've created a situation where a lot of, when you create a big storm like this, what happens is you expose the vulnerabilities, right? You expose the vulnerabilities. And they knew that all these, various, regional and, just smaller banks, mid-sized banks and things like that were on shaky ground. They already knew that because they just had come out of a major storm, like, within 10 years prior, and we're still kind of like getting back on their feet again and things like that. So what ended up happening, and you see who were the major winners when it came to JP Morgan Chase was a big one. I mean, they gobbled up the depositor accounts like crazy. You know what they left behind? The bad debt. They did not. In those acquisitions, do you think that they took on all the bad loans, all the bad stuff? No, they didn't. And that all got rewrapped into other types of products and vehicles because it doesn't evaporate. It doesn't go away, and that type of thing. What ends up happening is it all gets just rewrapped up and sold to other market players. And this is what you're talking about when you're talking about buying the debt. And when you're talking about that, you're talking about a revolving door between the Treasury and the Federal Reserve, right? Treasury goes out and they say, okay, we're going to buy up the debt. Well, how does the Treasury buy the debt? They're bankrupt. They have no money, trillions of dollars in debt. Well, they go to the Federal Reserve. What does the Federal Reserve do? They create the money, right? Which, increases the M2 money supply and all that. And then they use that to buy up the debt. And this is the deal. Most folks don't understand money supply and how it impacts the economy. And so that debt gets bought up. Well, who's buying that? Well, the government's buying that debt. And then it's just a big revolving door and it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And guys, I do believe that there's still a lot of life left in it, in that they will keep revolving this door. I think it will get to some levels that are absolutely obscene that most people can't even fathom. I remember back 2012, and I was listening to Gerald Salante even back then, and I like Gerald. He's a really great guy.
Great guy.
And he comes out with some really great forecasts for trends and things like that. And I remember him talking about this. Well, even then, most people did not fathom the lengths that they would go to create more money in the money supply. And, there was a great article put out by Forbes in February of this year on mergers and acquisitions. And do you know what it was talking about? It was talking about the expectation of the Federal Reserve cutting rates by 1 full percentage point when, of course, we know they're supposed to be fighting inflation and moving it up, up, up. Literally cutting the rate from what 4.5% to something like 3.5%, and then and that's what their goal was, and bringing it down. Why? Because they were creating easy money for institutions. Where is there not created easy money?
Right.
Well, there's no easy money in retail, is there? In fact, you'll find out that they're cutting credit card limits because, as you so well said, Bersan, credit card debt is off the Richter scale. Why? Because people are using it not to purchase goods, to satisfy desire, but to live.
At this point,
The average person. And so there's a disconnect between the market and the economy. This market, believe it or not, is not, when I tell you this, the market could take off like a rocket ship and the economy could tank like a submarine at the same time.
yeah,
Don't
I mean,
you
there's no doubt we're going to see a bull market for sure.
Yes.
May I just
but
say one thing?
what is going to spur it is this easy money coming out of the Federal Reserve and all these other global central banks, which, by the way, as Vandell so eloquently pointed out, are working in unison. So
Right.
with these mergers and acquisitions that are happening, it's coming from easy money to major global financial behemoths, where the rest of us, it's not going to flow down this way. We are not going to see, it's not going to be easy. It's going to get harder and harder and harder. And the wealth divide is going to get greater and greater and greater. Watch and see.
Yes. Real quick, I know, Vandell, you wanted to say something, but let's hear from Edo first, and then we'll come back to you, let you say your piece, and then circle back to me, okay?
I'll add something about Europe to add on that perspective. And here is very similar, and it's happening in most of European countries. You guys know I lived in many countries in the past years. I also happen to travel a lot in Europe. It's quite easy to do that here. And what I see is that large corporations are actually buying not only real estate, but the service companies of most countries. So, for instance, in Portugal, they did the same. In Italy, you have China-based state companies that are actually purchasing, for example, the electricity provider company. The Portuguese one now becomes Chinese owned. So that for me really shows that we are entering a system that is somehow, I would call, maybe you guys have a different way to call it, but I would call it like a meta capitalism, where there's that's not really chance for the small players. Because let's be honest, we're not living anymore in a free market. If I say me, Edo, want to start a business here in Europe and I want to go legal, they're gonna kill you with the taxes. So there's not really a chance for the small players, for the people like us. I'm not talking about, we are not a hedge fund, we are not like billionaires. We don't have all that capital. So if you're just planning to start your own business, let's say with $50,000, $100,000, if you're going legal from the beginning, they just made it impossible for the average person to start a business. So for me, we're no longer living in a system that's per definition as the capitalism, where there are free markets and everyone is unequal. When you have these large companies that are purchasing everything and then doing the same that Vandell pointed out before, when they also buying real estate in mass, so artificially inflating the demand so that prices continuously go higher and higher. And now you have a system where it's impossible, virtually impossible, if the average person is going to play by their rules, to actually own your own property, because now it's artificially inflated. And if you take the average salary here in Europe for most countries, you have Italy, Spain, Greece, it's very low if you compare to the price of a house. How many years someone would actually have to work without spending money to even be able to purchase its own property? So what I see right now is that comes back to what we, every time we speak, is the second time we do this show, but I'm talking me and Versan because we used it to do the lives before, but destroying the middle class. So with these acquisitions happening live right now, in my perspective, it's just another way towards state control, where private individuals are getting poor by each day.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Vandell, you wanted to say something? Very good
Yeah,
point, Edo. You're spot on.
yeah. What Edo is saying is it's not a free market in terms of how it used to be in the past. It's capitalism. It's phony capitalism right now. It's a phony
Right.
capitalist market.
Hmm.
The opportunities that our parents and grandparents had are not available at the moment, and it's going to continue to get worse, in my opinion. Um, yeah, it's fake capitalism, really. They're just making it extremely difficult for your average person or family to start a small business from the ground up. And there's a number of reasons. It's because of high costs, which is currency debasement. That's what it comes down to. It's also because of high taxes, which is theft, really, but you still got to pay it. Um, they're making it extremely difficult. That's true. The other thing is what I was going to say earlier is the money printing, creating money out of thin air. What they do is when the economy is getting bad and things are taking a toll, they create a crisis because this allows them, it's like almost a justification for them to create substantial money out of thin air.
Hmm.
So they always create a crisis so that they can create more money into the system to simplify in simple terms and issue more debt. So yes, and I don't I don't see the liquidity slowing down anytime soon. As they create more money, add to the money supply, issue more debt, as David said, they're going to keep doing this as long as they can, and
Yep.
there's still a way to go. And I do believe that because I look at several different indicators, not just technical, but fundamentals.
Yeah.
Now, they all happen to line up around the same time frame. Okay, it's not just the presidential election; it's the debt refinance cycle. It's
Hmm.
around the time where at some point they're going to have to lower interest rates. It's uh, the Congressional Budget Office made a statement maybe 2 months ago saying that they're going to issue a minimum of $20 trillion in debt between 2024 and 2034.
A
So,
minimum.
yeah, minimal. Now, all the signs are there that the liquidity is going to
Mhm.
increase and they're going to print more
Mhm.
money. All
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
signs are there.
Well,
Plus, you got the Bitcoin halving, the bull run. I mean, layer them all on top of each other and you'll see the big picture.
right. But that's
Mhm.
why you want to be on the right side of this because we know no
Yeah.
doubt they are going to pump that market up. They have no choice,
Yeah.
and that is part of the consolidation phase. Another thing I want to point out because of something Edo said earlier, and and also someone in the comments here said that it's easy to start a business in Texas. They're right. It is easy to start a business in Texas. I
Easier.
owned multiple businesses in the past. And
Mhm.
one thing I noticed is after 2020 and the stimulus checks and all that, in 2021, I noticed people stopped paying with cash because that's when inflation started to accelerate. And the
Mhm.
widening wealth gap actually really began to accelerate after that shortly. And when
Mhm.
people would come into the shop, they started paying with credit cards and nobody had cash at this point. It started getting worse and worse. And I saw what was coming, and I was already doing my research into all this. 2023, I sold both businesses. Now I'm full time doing this, right? I got out
Mhm.
early, warned everybody about what was going to happen. People were going broke, and the debt was insane, and people were defaulting on their loans. So I got out early, and no one listened to me. Now they're all in trouble. All of them. They're all defaulting on
Mhm.
their buildings and what they have right there. So that's all coming out. It's like Edo said, it's very hard for you to own a business these days, and that's really what this was all designed to do. It's to keep people working for the bigger institutions and keep you working these jobs. You know,
Mhm.
so I think that's all coming to an end, anyways. I do want to shift the conversation. There's a lot of significant news about the end of the petrodollar. Some
Mhm.
are saying it's coming around June 9th of this month. And I don't like to make predictions and I don't like giving timelines either, but I do certainly see how this can align remarkably with all the other global developments associated with the US and the end of the US dollar, despite whether you want to twist it, sugarcoat it, like most of these economists and financial experts. They like to circle around interest rates and a stronger dollar. And it really doesn't matter. We can talk about that, and it's going to work, right? They're going to have to lower interest rates at some point, sure. But it really doesn't matter because, again, the US is living on borrowed time at the same time while consolidating the wealth before that time comes. And for those who don't know, historically, the U.S. military-industrial complex was the one who promised Saudi Arabia, with Henry Kissinger, to protect the Middle East or Saudi Arabia through weapons and arms in exchange for maintaining the petrodollar, which, of course, gave the U.S. substantial global power, which was then abused, right? And we all know now the dollar's purchasing power and the world reserve status is diminishing. It's coming to an end. This marks the pivotal moment because this 50 or 70-year-old contract, Vandell? You said 50, right?
Yeah, from 1974 till this year, and exclusively to conduct oil trade,
right?
Exclusively in U.S. dollars.
Okay, so
in exchange for U.S. military security and economic assistance,
etc. Right. Now, this conflict between Russia and the U.S. is accelerating. It's escalating. The U.S. gave permission for Ukraine to drop bombs in Russia. This is obviously not a positive development, but it does signal, and I tweeted about this the other day, the demise of the U.S. dollar and the return eventually to the gold standard, which is, again, why the central banks, financial institutions, and smart money, like some of us here, we're seeking refuge in hard assets to some degree. And of course, there is cryptocurrency and blockchain technology that is going to intersect with this shift. That's a topic we're discussing and exploring all the time. XRP, it's going to play a very key role in this alongside the M Bridge with a range of national currencies, once again backed by hard assets, working with the Bank of International Settlements. So I know I covered a lot over there, but we're focused on the petrodollar. I want to know what your thoughts are, Vandell, and then we'll move to David and circle to Edo.
Well, it's going to lead to a currency crisis.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, for exactly what will unfold on June 9th, nothing. Because anytime we have a date, nothing happens. It's when we're not expecting it. So that's how I see it playing out. But long-term implications, this is it. This is the end. It's a new beginning, a new chapter. It's the end of the U.S. dollar's life cycle. From a value perspective as well. That's why you see significant debasement in the value and the currency. That is an indicator that the currency is getting closer to the end of its life. So tremendous indicators out there telling us that. As for the exact date, I don't think it's just my opinion. I don't think anything is going to happen that day, although I could be incorrect. They sure do have a few cards up their sleeve. It's difficult to pinpoint dates. You just can't do it. What do you guys think, David, Ido?
David.
Well, a lot of things were going on around the time when Nixon was president that focused around preserving the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency and how it actually, pushed forward to give the Western world a great level of influence. So one of them was, of course, Nixon took us completely off the gold standard, completely off it at that time. And it wasn't too much longer after that, of course, that this arrangement with Saudi Arabia came into full fruition. Now, what really did it do? It wasn't just the fact that the US dollar was going to be deemed, and it became the de facto reserve, by the way, currency. It wasn't like globally accepted as the reserve currency. It became de facto. Why? Because most nation states were needing to purchase energy in the form of oil. All of the OPEC countries, Saudi Arabia being chief there, had agreed that they were going to only transact in US dollars and securing that. Most Americans and most Western citizens in Western countries don't even realize just how impactful that was to our lifestyles in terms of what did we move away from because of that? We moved away from manufacturing. where we stopped manufacturing goods in our own countries. And what enabled China to rise to the level that it did? Cheap labor and manufacturing was the result. And so now you're watching a world that has been basically exploited, right? A portion of the world exploited by this whole system that was set in place back those 50 years ago, in terms of cheap labor, their labor markets, in terms of goods being produced and shipped around the wide world. The Western world moved away from Germany, big one, another big one, moved away from manufacturing in a massive way compared to what it used to be, an economic powerhouse, by the way. United States used to export more than they ever import. And of course, what did we end up with? A trade deficit. Now, trade deficits have a huge impact on the way money flows around the wide world. Don't kid yourself. And so when we lose, now that we have lost, and I think we've lost this whole US reserve currency status a long time ago, we just haven't had the funeral yet. It's already dead. I totally believe that. But the impacts that are going to wash onto our shores over the next few years are going to be wild. Why? Because of the disparity in our trade, the amount of things that we need to import in order to literally enjoy the lifestyle and the benefit. That's why we are the largest economies, right? Is that we had the dollars to go out there and let somebody else make it, and we'll just buy it. And buy it cheap in comparison to what if we had to produce it ourselves, right? And so now that is off the table. And a tremendous dynamic shift has taken place that we are right in the process of seeing. And we're watching emerging economies that used to be third world catching up really fast, really fast. What that spells is a recipe of desperation. What has happened every single solitary time that a declining power has first faced an emerging power in this kind of like currency, war, whatever you want to call it, but a change in the economic shift. We saw it every single time. In fact, actually, the last time was the very first time that it did not involve war. That was the transition from the British, the sun never set on the British Empire, to the American dominance. But prior to that, every single other time the transitions like that has happened has resulted in major global conflict. Global conflict. Biden comes out just this past week, and he basically says to Ukraine, we're going to give you the okay to bomb Russia. Now, I mean, if that is not one of the most insane directives that has ever been put out there, it's absolutely asinine. And you got Europe. What are they doing right now? They're bringing back conscription. You got Sunak, the prime minister, who's facing an election. He says if he gets elected, he's going to bring back conscription. What are they preparing for? I'll tell you what they're preparing for. They're preparing for global conflict. This will result in a global conflict. This is not just the winding down and the flipping, okay, well, now the world reserve currency is going to be the Chinese yuan. Nope, that's not what's going to happen. What's more than likely going to happen, we are going to circle into, because we are not just talking about the dominance of the dollar. It's all of the other things that it means. You have got to really see behind the pages, peel back the onion. Losing world reserve currency status this is something they have gone to war over, just the very threat of it. You want examples of that? Look at Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein.
Yep.
Every one of those conflicts was fought over a threat of getting away from the US dollar. Right there. And if you think that they will not drag this Western society to war to defend its position as the global economic dominating power, you've got another. They absolutely will. I totally believe it 100%.
Yep.
And I think it's where we're going. And it just mesmerizes me how few Western citizens truly realize the impacts of that change. It truly is mind-boggling, really.
It's actually really sad. But it's okay. I mean, this is why we're doing these calls, so we can talk about these things openly. Yeah. And I think more people are becoming aware. So I'm going to be positive about this and think that people will eventually wake up. Let's just hope it's not too late. Edo, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a very complex topic, right? And we have many indicators that the US dominance is coming to an end. We can look from multiple perspectives, one of them being gold making new all time highs. We also
Mhm.
see all the sanctions against Russia. I mean, it's not a coincidence, Then you have countries like Brazil, Russia, China. They wake up tomorrow and they say, okay, the US has done that to Russia by removing them from the SWIFT payment system, for example. Who's going to be next? I don't think they feel comfortable on the situation. But I think that goes way beyond, I think, as David was saying, goes beyond just the currency narrative. I think that's about the whole geopolitical scenario where we had the America, not only about talking about currency, but the American way of life that we had in the past decades. I think right now it comes a huge threat for the Western world that goes beyond just a monetary threat. If I explain
Mhm.
myself properly, I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
Hmm.
we have China dictating the ideals of the world. And that's very concerning because we know that China has been living this dystopian dictatorship that goes from uh, monetary control, but also limiting the freedom of the individuals. You know that China
Mhm.
has a central bank digital currencies system already implemented, where if you go on the red light on the traffic, maybe you don't get on the airplane next. And I think that's the whole thing that worries me about the end of the US dollar. As David said, the funeral, it's only missing the funeral because the purchasing power is already lost. I think
Mhm.
it's going to be on 9th of June that is
We'll
coming the
see.
end agreement. It's correct, right? The 9th.
Yes, the end of the agreement, the
Well,
pact.
yeah, they're under no global financial obligation or treaty agreement to
Yeah.
continue to
Renew
facilitate
it.
it. But you know, like Saudi Arabia, the government of Saudi Arabia has already come out and flat out said that they have no intention of renewing it. And even prior to that, they had already had made some big shots across the bow, saying, "Look, we're not prepared to just sell our oil in U.S. dollars. Yes, we'll accept U.S. dollars, but that's not all we'll accept." You see, they've already been doing that. 1 million barrels of oil, not more than a few months ago, were sold to China, and China paid for it with their digital yuan. I mean, it's
Mhm.
already happened. And you know, from a perspective of where we're headed in the future here, one of the points, Vandell, you made earlier is the difficulty for, and Ito, you as well, the difficulty about going out there and really solidifying yourself in a competitive market. And we like to call that the free market. Well, the what's really going on here is a new iteration of fascism. Now, if you study what fascism was where the corporations and big corporate players really moved and controlled the economy. But it was a form of totalitarianism just the same. Maybe not a communistic way, but certainly totalitarianism. And we are certainly moving towards that now. Interestingly enough, the enforcement of that totalitarianism is not being left to the state. You know who it's being left to? It's being left to society. And they are pushing the narrative that we police ourselves. How? By silencing people, deplatforming people,
Yeah.
crafting a narrative where certain opinions cannot even be tolerated, let alone heard. I'm telling you what, we are losing a big part of what our freedom is when we lose the freedom to articulate thoughts and opinions that are against what the prevailing thought and opinion, what they want people to have. And this is the whole
Mhm.
attack against the social media narrative and
Yeah, and
and making it, So that's how I'd say that.
sadly, a lot of people already do not critically think, but for themselves. But we'll see what happens. Okay.
Good point for
Um,
some.
yeah. Sorry, guys. So I do want to shift the conversation into crypto. I know a lot of our audience here is actually curious about what's happening in the crypto markets. Everyone loves money, right? Okay. So
Yeah.
Edo, I'm going to bring it back to you actually, because you did mention something about the whales moving massive amounts of XRP. And I think it's a great talking point. Obviously, we've all discussed XRP and its significance for global financial system, especially in the context of blockchain technology. XRP, again, is going to be used as a global reserve settlement mechanism for institutions to transfer value worldwide. And I think it's clear after everything we've discussed and what we're seeing, the convergence, we talked about this last time, it's just everything is falling into place. And whales moving their XRP, to me, it sounds like people are positioning themselves accordingly before everything falls into place. And we know that, again, central banks have partnered with Ripple all over the world, and hundreds of banks have adopted its protocol, which leverages the digital asset XRP. So to the audience, of course, make sure you are positioned accordingly inside and outside the system, and store your crypto on cold storage, because as this escalates, I do believe cyber warfare will be on the rise. You know, we were warned about this in 2020, 2021 by the World Economic Forum and other powers that be, regardless of whether you believe these individuals have been replaced or removed. I really don't care. It doesn't matter. You just need to be prepared, because anything can happen in this way. So Edo, can you tell us a little more about what you've noticed with the XRP, and also that weren't there some acquisitions with Ripple as well?
Yeah, first I would like to mention something about XDC. As we are talking here today, there is an event taking place right now. It's live, and the CEO is actually speaking. It's called Paperless Trade Week, and this event presents in partnership with the World Economic Forum and also the United Nations. And you have the CEO of XDC actually talking on this event about cross-border payments. So that's something that I want everyone to keep in mind, that we are always believing in diversification. XDC is also very important on this history. Now, switching back to XRP, I think there has been a lot of noise. I was seeing that on X. A lot of people were actually worried about some big transactions going on behind the scenes, and that comes about XRP being released by the escrow. So that happens in the beginning of every month, and a lot of people are actually freaking out. What's going on? It's like 5% or 3% of the supply is actually being moved. And that just comes about the XRP escrow that releases in the beginning of the month. I think it's every second or first at the same time that transactions take place. So nothing to be worried about.
Can I make a quick statement on the escrow? And you guys know, we did a really good video when Edo and I we did a video on the escrow and the strategy of it. Just so people do understand, is that releasing XRP from escrow is again aimed at fostering more liquidity, which expands accessibility, and that further drives the adoption of crypto. And that approach aligns with what Ripple's broader vision really is: to revolutionize the global financial system, cross-border payments, and basically facilitate those frictionless transactions. But you have to understand from a macro perspective and understanding their actions regarding XRP. Some people focus on such short-term movements of price fluctuations. This is not about you guys. It's not about retail. It's about the bigger thing, right? But the larger goal of Ripple, again, is to establish XRP as a versatile and widely accepted digital asset. And one way by doing this is releasing escrow. You know, it's not to manipulate prices or flood the market, but it's there to enhance liquidity and foster even more partnerships, which drives the adoption again. So there's a video we did on this, and I think you should guys watch it. It was a little bit back then, but we covered everything. Vandell, what are your thoughts on the XRP escrow and just XRP in general, Ripple?
Yeah, they're just going with the timeline. I mean,
Said
people
and
like
done,
to
man.
complicate
Very simple.
everything. People like to complicate everything,
I
think
know,
too
man.
much about the details in this. Look, if you're serious as an investor and you're serious about financial sovereignty, protecting yourself now and in the future, just invest, protect it, and forget about it.
Agreed. Thank you.
Now let's never talk about XRP again. Just kidding.
If there's,
Yeah.
what I used to say on my old videos, on the older videos, I'd say if there are new developments and there's something we don't already know, I'll let you know. right? Until then, I was kind of covering everything else. But like you said, Vandell, and you
It's
said
a
it
long-term
so
game.
perfectly. They love to complicate things. And that's what I was talking about with Edo, all the noise, man. And that's why I like talking to you guys, because we can actually focus on the developments that are around it all. So, David, your take.
Well, the thing with the XRP escrow, it's interesting because every month the same kind of FUD comes out. It just seems like the channels get inundated with it. Oh my goodness, look how much XRP has been released. Ripple's dumping it on the market. The fact is, Ripple hasn't sold XRP on the retail market since 2019, and most of the escrow you're going to find out about 2 or 3 days after they pull it out, about 80% of it's thrown back in. The rest is used to, sold to ODL partners. And that tells you a lot, because on-demand liquidity for cross-border payments it is absolutely being bought, purchased, and used by major institutions globally for cross-border payments, the very thing for which its utility is really, pronounced and what it is. And another big thing is the stablecoin deal, because of course people are now coming out with, well, Ripple's coming up with its RLUSD, which they, released the name there in Amsterdam. And David said they were going to do that when he was at XRP Vegas. David Schwartz said they were going to tell you in Amsterdam. But the deal is this: it's only a complementing system. And it's not going to replace XRP, this narrative that somehow we are all being silently duped and all this kind of stuff. That is sheer and utter FUD. And the escrow serves a function within, like you had said, Versan, in the ecosystem. And I do not see it as a threat to what it's going to be and how it's going to be utilized in the future, not even in the least little bit. In fact, I don't think there's enough XRP for what the world is really going to need.
Yep. How many times have I said that? Is that there's not enough XRP, that the demand hasn't been recognized yet.
Yeah.
There's not enough, in my opinion, to service the global financial system, the global
And
economy.
that means a high price,
the
doesn't
size,
it?
exactly. And for it to function as that settlement mechanism for central banks, they're going to need to have it at a very high price. So I'm not going to get into this again, but I've talked about this so much. Anyways, this is going to now tie us into the final segment of this conversation. Once again, there were what's it called? David, you did mention, I'm sorry. You mentioned something that the Biden administration,
Biden had,
if I'm not mistaken, called SAB 121. So, and just to be perfectly honest with the audience, I personally have not done enough research into this yet, so I'm not going to make too many comments on it. But thank you for bringing it to our attention, David, because I missed it.
SAB 121 is an internal SEC rule that basically makes commercial banks impossible for them to custody, crypto assets. And so what happened was, the House and the Senate agreed that this is ridiculous. This stifles innovation, stifles competitiveness, it stifles all kinds of various things. And so, it gets to Biden's that Biden beforehand said, look, even if it comes to me, I'm going to veto it anyway. And it's really wild, because one of the things in this political cycle, one of the big hot topics is this whole digital asset space. It is a really big topic. And when you think about this, 20% of the electorate in the United States are touching on crypto. Now, I heard somebody else say this, and I agree with this statement, is that right now there is not a block of voters that are big time pushing for anti-crypto. There is not. But there are certainly a block of voters that are looking for the adoption and regulatory clarity for this digital asset space in a big, big way. That's going to have major impacts. We've seen it already in the political narrative. I mean, you literally had, and I think we mentioned this last time, but you had Trump out there touting the benefits of Bitcoin. And I think we're going to see a big shift. 71 people voted for the FIT21 bill, which, is now heading to the Senate, which we'll see how it goes from there and whether Biden will veto that or not. But him vetoing that speaks volumes. And to me, it's really disingenuous, because we know a lot of the players, these people that are pushing these anti-crypto narratives and that, are on the sidelines accumulating like no tomorrow. Some of these major players are into this space in a big way, yet they don't want to come out there and reinforce this with constituents. And it's literally a pre-planned agenda right from A to Z.
Yep.
And so you can go, and a person can go look this up and see what it's all about. The information is publicly available, but yeah, what a big tell that was in my mind. Anyway.
And it's just, this is what I said to you guys in the message the other day. I don't know if you saw that one, Edo and Vandell, but I said, I kind of wanted to avoid it because I was like, that's just them playing their game, but it's still important. I was like, they're just going to play this out for the masses, man. Let slowly bring this thing in. Anyways, we know how it ends. So, Vandell, do you want to add some thoughts to that? Did you?
Yeah, well, since this is tied to the banks, remember the banks, they want to control the money, okay? They want to control the crypto, especially the crypto. Yeah. So the SAB 121 prevented them from actually holding crypto assets without, stipulations and all that.
Right.
So the interesting thing is, we already know how this is going to play out. It's just it's so evident, like it's so obvious, And the interesting thing is, we also know that they've been accumulating gold at record levels, since 2010. Now, I know I'm not trying to shift the conversation too much, but in regards to the gold accumulation that they've been doing, I think it's on their agenda for gold to return as a world reserve asset on the central bank's balance sheet. And this will be tied in some way, form, or fashion to some of these digital assets that we discuss.
Yeah. I
think it could be backing EDSR,
Well, it's definitely going to be a world reserve asset on the central bank's balance sheet.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've been touting this for 2 years straight on Twitter. And I keep saying that there's the confirmation. It's everywhere. The signs are everywhere. If you looked at a new gold standard is coming. Even Vandell and I, we spoke with John Butler. I'm actually surprised it only got 12,000 views. It should have got a lot more. And it underscores, again, the importance of a digital asset such as XRP, because it's a neutral bridge asset for the central banks to move gold reserve assets. And of course, if you're going to have a gold standard, the need for a digital counterpart is necessary, crucial, and essential, which again explains Ripple's partnerships worldwide and that use the XRP. So, we know again where this is all going. Edo.
Go ahead.
I want to quickly answer a very valid question here, and maybe you want to add something on top of that. But someone says, and we already answered that. It's very a common question. Someone says it's actually called free falling. Do you really think that governments around the world will let so many people make a lot of money from XRP? That's what worries me. They won't allow that to happen. Now, so many people, we have to define how many people, Let's think
that's
for
a good point.
The point is, how many people are actually holding first? How many people are invested in digital assets? That's a very minority of the population. How many people are actually invested in XRP, and how many of these people invested in XRP actually have the XRP in cold wallets? Because remember, if you don't have your keys, if you have your XRP in crypto exchanges, there might be some black swan events and you lose your XRP. And not only that, but let's think for a second, if Bitcoin comes close to crash, they're going to make much more people to lose their money by investing in Bitcoin, for example. And I'm not saying Bitcoin will go to zero. I'm just playing a scenario here. That people are actually making money with XRP. Just think that Brett Garlinghouse said that 99% of cryptocurrencies are going to disappear. When regulation starts to kick in, can you imagine how many people are actually going to lose their money? And let alone that the majority of people don't have the XRP in cold wallets.
Yeah.
Can I say something just to give people a visual perspective? It answers the question you brought up by whoever left that comment there. So this is documented, and this is all public information. But to answer that question right there, so approximately, according to CoinCarp, a little over 4 million individual wallets hold XRP.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, however, 77%, approximately 77% of the 4 million plus wallets
Hmm.
hold less than 500 XRP.
That is true.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Let's say there's 4,500,000 wallets.
Hmm.
Me personally, I have 5 wallets.
Hmm.
So you guys do the math.
Yeah.
That means there's less
Yeah,
than
very good
there's
point.
less than
It's a
3
very,
million.
very small number.
Yeah,
in
it's
Well,
terms
not
of
just
global
that,
population.
if XRP started
And-
to move even by $2-3, Edo and I, we talked about this publicly on one
people
of the
would be
podcasts.
out.
It's just that
That's it.
most people would sell out, and not just
Yeah.
that. Those people, a lot of people still, again, don't even know about this. When I meet people on a daily basis, I'm talking to these people and I ask them if they know anything about crypto. I'm just curious, or even a grocery store. They like, oh, you mean like Bitcoin? That's what they say to me until today. So again, very few people, they don't know what the hell is going on. Most people, again, don't even understand the technology, so they're not going to be invested in it. And yeah, we're very, very few people in this space who truly understand where this technology is going, how it impacts the global financial system.
Yeah.
So very little. When people
And-
say, "Are you going to get rich?" and I believe in natural selection. Okay, there are
Yeah.
going to be a few people out there who will benefit, just like the dot-com bubble. And then, of course, history will repeat itself. Most people will get left behind, and that's
Yeah.
just how
Well,
this works.
remember,
You don't want to
remember,
have to sugarcoat this,
yeah. Gupta had come out and he said, and he worked with Ripple, and I think he was the head of the Middle East, North
manager.
Africa, and he had come out and basically said, "Hey, XRP was not meant for retail." And then, of course, you have the whole Kendra Hill narrative that went on way back when.
It's not meant
And
for retail.
yeah, the reality is it is not it. And of course, when you're in something, it becomes part of your conversation, your daily routine. You think everybody knows, but you guys are so right on. So few people know. And let's think about this right now. XRP, get this from a historic on the relative strength index, it's as weak as it has ever been historically. It is literally on the precipice of, I don't know. No one can guarantee because we don't know the future. We don't have crystal balls. But I'll tell you what, if you were a betting person, you would be betting on this horse because it is at a point, and we have seen it every single time. I mean, look, in 2017, nobody, and I mean nobody, back at that time when in January, February, March, and XRP was under 1 penny, the amount of FUD that was going around XRP was like crazy. And if you had not given into that FUD, and a lot of people did, XRP moved up to the 20-cent range, which would have been a phenomenal return on 1 cent. They sold out. Do you realize it wasn't much more than just a couple months later, it flew off to that $3.84, one of the most monumental, we are talking 40, 50,000% gains. And literally from 1 year to the next, if you had invested $6,000 into XRP, 1 year later, you would have had $3.84 million worth. Now that's getting rich. Now, did the powers that be let that happen? Sure, they let it happen.
Of course.
I do
why
not believe that, this whole idea, well, they're not going to let it happen. They're going to,
So dumb.
no, I think they've kept, there's such a small percentage of, like you said, Vandell, of people in it that I don't think it's a matter of, they're going to let so many, it's just going to happen. Natural selection, like you said,
Another
it's going
thing,
to take over.
You're right, David. But another thing is throughout these market cycles, this is how it goes.
Always
As
went
they
this
print
way.
more money, people that own assets get rich and get wealthier.
And that's the same
people,
in the equities market too. Let's be honest.
And people that don't own anything stay behind.
They get decimated because the purchasing power has been wiped out.
Yeah. So this is going to happen again, and it will happen again, and it will, and it's not going to end. Okay. So yeah. But
real quick. All right.
There's a lot of digital assets out there.
Mm-hmm. We're ending. We're about to end this conversation because we're getting to. We're almost done here, guys. But I do want to answer something. A lot of the comments here, I keep seeing Codius, and it's just a smart contract platform that was developed by Ripple. You can. I don't think you can access it though. I remember at one point you could buy it on KuCoin, but then something happened and KuCoin just kind of delisted it, and that was the last time I ever saw it.
Yeah.
But again, Codius is it's basically like an interoperability with multiple smart contracts, blockchain technologies, and enables the smart contracts to interact with other blockchain networks. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there's so many damn cryptos out there, and of some of the technologies we teach, these technologies, in my opinion, they complement each other because they're not really in competition to what they're doing. So, of course, there's a lot of opportunity out there. I don't know where you guys can purchase Codius anymore, and believe me, I've looked for it. So if you find it, let me know. But guys, yeah, last thought, because I got a call here soon. So
I just want to share with everybody my top holdings on the digital assets that I've been holding for years, and some of them several months now. It's, of course, XRP, XLM, XDC, HBAR, SHX, and Velo. And Aljarrah is last. That's it.
Well, hey, I don't mind doing that. I'm holding XRP, XLM, Hedera Hashgraph, XDC, Polkadot, Chainlink, Cardano, VChain, and Algorand, and stuff, and Bello. Thanks to you, Vandell. That was a good one. I liked it.
Give credit to somebody who might be watching. It's Dustin,
No,
very good friend of mine.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that we support XRP, and I talk about it primarily on my channel, but it's not the only thing that we hold. And I agree with Versan 100%. These are complementing technologies, not competing technologies.
Yeah. And
great talk, you guys.
That's the beauty of it. You know, there's a lot of opportunity out there. Again, they're solving issues in different levels, different places in the global economy. Therefore, there's much more opportunity. But the most important thing is when we talk, like on my channel, when I'm talking about the financial system, the geopolitics, the economics, I always try to tie it back to XRP at the end because it's Ripple Net that's been integrated all over, where everything eventually is being built upon and interoperable between. So it's not really hard to understand this. And my brother mentioned it earlier very elegantly, that people like to complicate things in the space. But gentlemen, this has certainly been a fascinating discussion. Again, I'm glad that we can talk about this openly with the community and everybody else. I also do want to thank the audience for being so supportive and just very kind. I've seen the messages, the comments. So, you know, for doing everything you guys can to help us out, get this message out there and amplify the channel. But it's crucial because we need more people to come together. And I think, again, that's how we're going to win this game. Community is so important given what's going on in the world. Guys, do you guys have any thoughts? We can keep it short before we wrap up because I also have to water my plants.
I think we're at an exciting time in history. I would say that. One of the most exciting times.
Okay, Vandell?
I just want to send a special... Sorry, I cut Vandell. Go ahead.
He's on mute.
Yeah, he's on mute.
Go ahead, Ido.
Yeah, I just want to send a special thanks for the audience and remind that we're going to be back here next Monday with the turning point, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. So yeah, thank you.
I just want to say we'll be doing this again next Monday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And somebody recommended buying a crypto called CumSwap, so I'll definitely look into that.
Oh my God.
And thank you very much, everybody.
No, there's a lot of one thing I'm going to tell the audience is that you're going to see a lot of people in the comments putting these crappy cryptos out there. And I want you to understand that, like, they'll be like, hey, Versan, great video, but check this one out. Don't. Okay, it's a scam. I promise you. A lot of scammers out there, okay? Important. Don't buy into bullshit you don't understand. So,
yeah, good one.
All right, take care, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, guys. Monday.
I'll talk to you guys later.